Welcome to the Synced Up podcast, where we talk tech, digital media, and business. In this podcast, you will get an insight into our lives, but also into our businesses, industries, and being business owners in competitive markets. In this first section, we're going to have a catch up on our weeks, both inside and outside of work. And on that note, Josh, what have you been up to?
That's the big question, because I don't have very good memory, so I can't remember what I've been doing even yesterday. What have I been doing this week? It's been a lot of editing, to be honest, over the past sort of 7 days. We've had previously like 3 shoots back to back, which just gives you like a huge amount of footage to go through. So data management is pretty mental.
I guess when you're obviously when you only see the finished result of a video, you don't kind of consider that, you have to go and take all the shots and arrange all the different shoots. But then what you end up with is a boatload of raw footage that then needs to be edited, color corrected, and it's a whole heap of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like a lot of people don't realize, they sort of think, oh, well, you've got the footage, you can just edit it. It don't take we only want a 30-second clip. That will surely take like 5 minutes. And it's like, no, because we actually have to go through everything as well and pick out the really important key shots. So
I bet you end up rewatching the whole thing like 3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah. After an event, you sort of, at the beginning, you're like, wow, we've got all these really cool shots. By the end of the project, you're like, I never want to look at this footage ever again. I've seen it. I'm dreaming it.
Well, since we're talking work, it's been, I suppose we've come off the busiest month we've ever had as a business. So that was September, and then that rolled into October. But that also sort of coincided with a lot of holidays our side as well. So between me and a couple of my team, we've all been taking holidays. So we were at full power for a little bit, and then I've got Aaron off again at the moment, which he needs to use his holiday. It's all good. It just, but fortunately, everything's quietened down a little bit. So we've been able to actually catch up on some of the projects that we were doing, and it doesn't feel like we're constantly firefighting and drowning, which you kind of have on the noise of the support desk anyway. But I think when you've got projects on top of that and client onboardings and all that kind of stuff, and it's very busy, at some point you just need to catch your breath.
Yeah. Do you find there are like specific times in the year besides holidays? Do you find there's like specific times of the year where like everyone needs support? Like the phone's just like going off the hook, and it's just
Any given week, I mean, there's quieter months. December's the obvious one, right? Because everyone sort of winds down. And then when January might be a bit busy, because when people all come back and then suddenly things don't work, or, things have been turned off for so long, January might be a little bit busier. But generally, there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason which week seems to be busy. And you could be having a quiet day and like 2 or 3 hours pass, and then suddenly 5 phone calls come in the space of 5 minutes. So it's very much you take the rough with the smooth in terms of busyness in our industry.
Do you find as well, like, because obviously recently we had the Amazon got taken down for like a day or something like that. Obviously, like I feel like there's not much that you can do. Maybe there is, I don't know, but I feel like there's not really any control you have over that. But then do people come to you being like, everything's not working? And you're like, yeah, this is bigger than, this is like just a full-on outage.
Well, usually when people are calling the support desk, it's because there's a problem. Now, what might be a very simple problem and ultimately a very easy fix is obviously if something's not working and they're busy, then it's the end of the world for them. So some people do come in quite hot on the phones who kind of expect it in IT, but I think like if we had a global outage, if I guess you can prioritize stuff, and if you've got a company where everything's gone down or there's been a major breach or something, then it's going to be all hands on deck, and you'd have to obviously pull in a lot of resource to resolve that. Generally speaking, you have the odd things go down or things not work, and internet outage is an obvious one, but fortunately we're not dealing with Amazon level clients or JLR, which is the other obvious big one of recent.
I feel like we've gone like really far into the depths of like what we're doing, but we haven't really told anyone what we actually do yet.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not obvious, Josh, what do you do?
Okay, so basically, my company is a video production and photography company, so it's all visual media. Really, the sort of phrase I've always used is if it's moving on a screen, then we do it, and we do the capture as well.
Yeah,
But
that's a nice succinct explanation.
yeah.
I'm an IT support business, so we're known in the industry as an MSP, a managed service provider. So for businesses where there's teams of people, we do support one-man bands and like startups as well. But obviously businesses with teams of people, we're the IT help desk, the outsourced help desk, where we're there when things go wrong. We can help setups and management, that sort of stuff. So we're a traditional IT support business, is the easiest way to explain it. Now that at least people now know what we do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, now you can switch off.
What about personally though? Because obviously we've just dove straight into work, and technically it's a business podcast. But anything outside of work that's been worth of note recently? Or
A lot of,
upcoming?
well. So I mean, to introduce everyone into the world of running. So Matt got me into running it's probably been about 8 months, 9 months now.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, it's like it's become like an obsession. So I basically, if I really look at my evenings, I'd say about 50% of them have been some level of running or gym.
I feel that Josh has had a nice exposure to running as well, because he's sort of started in the summer months and the spring, and now we're hitting autumn and we're losing daylight, and then the real test will come in the winter when you're freezing weather, rain, and still get it done.
I had when we had torrential rain it's like 2 days ago.
Yeah,
I had picked that moment. That day I was like, I must do my interval run, and I went out. And when I left, I was like, it's raining, but it's not mental.
Yeah.
And I sort of lost track of it. And you know when you're so tired, and I'm like, what is going on? And then when I looked around, I was like, oh my God, there is so much, like the ground is saturated. It is pouring down. I couldn't, like my everything, I was completely soaked.
I've been there, but fortunately the other day, I think it was the first time I've gone, no, I'm going to the treadmill today. I looked outside and thought, absolutely not. And I hate treadmill running, but I actually preferred it on this occasion.
Yeah, I had a bad treadmill experience. So so we had one introductory session which you showed me how to use a treadmill. So I was like, great, I've done this now. Someone has shown me how to do this. It'll be fine. So I went to my gym, Pure Gym, and the treadmill there, it's like analog. So the one which we use, like TV screen, you've got like all these like nice dials and displays, everything's very clear. Pure Gym, it's like, oh yeah, it's like, here's a little knob to turn it up. It's not that bad, but it's basically, yeah, you have to push like a manual button, and it doesn't tell you whether it's in miles, kilometers. So the first thing I do is I'm like, oh, okay, I'll figure out what my pace is, put it on about, I can't remember what it was like 12 or 13.
Yeah, I hope that was miles per hour. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah, it was miles per hour. So I'm like, and it starts off gentle, and then it gets more and more and more, and then I'm like, whoa, this is
abort.
Yeah. Oh my God. And people are like watching me, like, what is that guy doing? And I'm like there, like absolutely sending it on the treadmill, like, slow down.
Well, we'll get a trial by fire then.
Yeah.
So I've kind of I'm in a weird spot because I ran Chicago Marathon back on the 12th of October. Then I came back kind of trying to recover, and then ended up doing 2 Hyrox races on the in Birmingham, which I wasn't quite recovered for. And then obviously that put me into a bigger hole. So I'm now kind of sort of prepping up to train for another Hyrox in London. I should probably explain what Hyrox is. That'll be a future podcast, because we're running. This has been the biggest introduction ever. But I'm kind of in that. I'm trying to get back into training. It's been what would have been a normal week before of hard training is just feeling like it's brutal again. But other than that, everything in my world at least seems to be in working order. The wife and kids like me at the moment, which is great.
Brownie points.
Yeah. So I think it's a good time to head into the next section of the podcast. I am going to get cue cards for this, but I'm on my phone at the moment. Apologies. So let's get into the main feature of this week's podcast, where we take a topic from one of our specific industries or maybe something from business in general. Today, we're talking about starting a business. And Josh, we briefly talked about our entries into our current businesses, which I believe are quite different. So, Josh, how did you get involved in your business?
Really, I wasn't ever intending to get into media. I sort of looked at the industry. So my dad was a photographer and was all his life, and I watched him in his studio, and I thought, oh, this is really cool. But what I saw was like the business slowly getting like smaller and smaller, and the work just sort of, there was always work there, but it was always like people were doing it more in house, and so he trimmed back his business to the point where he was like, well, actually, now's a good time to retire. And sort of like just didn't look for any more work. He just sort of kept the clients that he liked working with and just sort of worked with those on an ad hoc basis. So in the meantime, I'm thinking, well, that doesn't look like the safest industry to get into. So I went to uni and studied computing because I was like, that feels like the way the world's going. And during my time at uni, I'd picked up a few random little sort of editing jobs from a friend I knew at school. We used to make stupid videos together, and he just introduced me to a guy. And I'm doing like £20 per edit. So this is like not even pocket money. It's like, pathetic, pathetic sort of pay. But I was like, oh, this is quite fun actually. And that sort of threw me into the world. So alongside uni, I was sort of just trying to do a little bit more here and there. And then I started picking up a few sort of trial clients. And then you pick up your first actual client. And then you start thinking, oh, I'll get some kit. And then it just sort of progressed. So it was a really, really slow, like introduction into the industry.
I feel like you've had it slightly differently than most will probably have for an entry into a business, because you didn't obviously start it. It was your dad's business, right? You saw, but he was winding down. You were starting to gain an interest in the video side, and at some point, you'd have seen an opportunity to start representing Middlebrook Media at the time, to sort of go and do some actual, client work and projects, right? But I think the interesting bit for where it might resonate with, especially on the theme of starting a business, is at some point you had to start taking the reins and making the decisions, right? Because and this might happen with some people that maybe do a buyout of a business, and suddenly they've purchased this business, they've got some staff that exists, they've got some equipment and some processes and ways of doing things. So you kind of dove in mid-business-ish and suddenly you can start to make control. Did that happen overnight for you, or did it?
Well, so interesting. I never sort of joined forces with my dad. We'd always use each other.
Yeah.
Like he'd use me as an assistant. I'd use him as a very, very experienced assistant. But we never sort of set up a company together.
Yeah.
So his company was called the Picture Workshop, and I never, So this is, I always forget that this is like a really critical thing to mention. So yeah, I set up completely separately to my dad.
I didn't realize that. So you effectively did a full startup from zero.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. And then only later on did I sort of think, well, his sort of company history was there. And I thought, well, it makes sense to sort of utilize that. Somewhat has been useful, somewhat not, but it gives us like a nice sort of standing, 50 years of trading history.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's almost is that way. There's a lot of things like even like the studio, like the space we're in now. This is originally his studio, and now it's our studio. So there's a lot of crossover there.
Oh, it's a really interesting sort of way to sort of slowly incorporate into a business and ultimately almost merge into working together. And now your dad's pretty much fully retired.
Yeah, he's fully retired now. He's full-time lawnmower.
There's plenty of things I want to do when I'm older, but I don't think I can ever dive into the gardening side. So my side was, I call it a standing start, but I was in IT in my dad's business for the best part of 15 years. and it was the COVID year. So 2020 is when I started Cloud Top Technology. And it was an unplanned at the time, and I just dove myself in, and one day just made the decision I want to do it. I want to do it myself. And so I had a really interesting sort of, well, wake up call for one, but also had to go through the processes of setting up the business, registering the name on Company's House, deciding what type of business it's going to be. Is it going to be limited, etc. Obviously, I did decide on it being a standard sort of limited company. But then branding, what name do I choose? Obviously, I could do the tech side of the setup quite easily because it fell into what I knew. And then obviously, when I first started, initially, I was just going to help people migrate to the cloud. So my idea was that, in COVID time, it was suddenly everyone was forced to work from home, and there was this opportunity to help companies that were still using on-premise stuff that needed to be able to work more flexibly. So I had that whole idea. It wasn't meant to be an IT support company. I mean, it didn't take me long to then go, that's actually what I need to become. So it did what my initial idea did evolve within the space of a year, but it was very much, I had no customers. I had no plan other than, and the funny thing is when you start a business, nobody cares. There's no huge announcement anywhere unless you make one.
Yeah.
There's no, unless you start telling people about it, whether it's digitally, in face to face, announcing it on socials or whatever, anyone can start a business. There's no process really. Like you don't have to fill out, take a course to start a business. Anyone can, in theory, do it.
Well, in terms of because obviously the way I set up my business is like a lot. I feel like a lot of like slow build. Whereas you went in knowing you're like, I need to sort out a brand. I need to sort out like how the market works. So how did you go about figuring that out? Is it just Google?
Well, from the brand side, I live in Cloudstop, and I knew it was going to be a cloud-related business. So I just Cloudstop. It's funny because I think I was in the shower and I just went, oh, why did I do that? And I knew it wanted to be technology because it was going to be a tech business, so I needed the nod there as well. So that side was straightforward. Fortunately, my wife was able to help me. She'd done accounts for a few businesses before, so she kind of knew from like a compliance side what I needed to do, that I needed to register it and so forth. And actually, at the time, I did ask a few people for a bit of advice. And actually, that's one of the things I would suggest if you are looking to start a business. Ask some people that have done it before, get in touch, and just lean on people's wisdom, because there is a few things you're going to need to do and consider. Obviously, the whole going to market side is one thing of how you're going to get customers and what's your offer. That's a huge part. But for me, it kind of I needed to sort it out quite quickly, and then took a while, bit of grafting. I did a lot of networking at the time, I still do. And that started to slowly introduce me to some businesses. I got my first client and it was really exciting, and sent my first invoice. I think now though, I work with a lot of startups. In IT, it's kind of expected that, if you're going to do the tech side of a step. So I get to see a lot of people going through the startup process, which is in a way why I thought it'd be a good way to start the podcast as a topic. But equally, it's kind of, there's a bit of symmetry in we're starting a podcast and we're talking about starting a business. So there's definitely, I mean, I could talk around the IT side of starting a business, but when it comes to it, you need to figure out a name. And you need to figure out what you're going to do. And some of the more difficult things, like how do you price yourself? Because you haven't exactly got a matrix to work from, and very early on it could be a little bit what do I do, how much do I value myself, and most people undervalue themselves initially.
I 100% did.
It definitely helps if you've got skills. So if you've got, obviously, if you're going to start a HR business and you've never worked in HR before, you're going to have a rude awakening to the world of HR. Right? So most people who end up going into a business, it's because they've worked in that industry.
I feel like you can be honest with people though. Like if you are like a startup, as long as you're not like way overpriced and you're honest with people and just go like, look, this isn't something we've done like loads of. I understand like the theory behind it. As long as, I mean, if they're decent people, then they'll sort of have the understanding and they'll let you sort of not like learn as you go, because you have to go in with a bit of experience and a bit of like, you can't go messing up people's systems.
Yeah, exactly.
But as long as they're confident that, and you're confident that you can deliver, it just might take a little bit longer for you to figure a few things out, then I feel like that's the really like safe way of getting, you know, getting clients in early doors.
I found that some people were really quite warm to helping a startup. I think some people have got a soft spot for it, maybe
Yeah.
because they've been there before, they understand that or more maybe they connect with it, they're going to be helping a person. And you're right,
Mm.
you're not just going to pay someone to completely mess something up. You've got to have some level of trust. And obviously, when we talk about businesses evolving, you know, it all becomes about building up trust, whether it's, you know, the way you present yourself, the way you act, the way you're presented online and so forth. It's all about building trust, but as long as you're confident that you can deliver what you're proposing,
Mm.
and then you do what you say you're going to do, and you're
Yeah.
honest with people, then I think you might find it's actually a friendlier place to work. The
Yeah.
biggest problem is knowing where to position yourself. Like, where do you invest your time early doors? Do you do? I ended up cold calling, which was because I'd done it before in the past, and I just started looking at all the businesses locally because I live in a small village. So I thought, right, 10-mile radius. We've got 5 other villages. I'm just going to find every business there and cold call them. Now, some people wouldn't want to do that, and I don't blame them for not. But I knew that for the most part, most people need IT support at some stage in their business journey. So for me, it was kind of a numbers or a chance of let's just see what's around locally. And obviously I could play into that. I'm local, I'm very close to you guys. It'll be easy for me to support you. And it depends what industry you're in, obviously, as to is you're offering more niche, or is it more mainstream, like an accountant or a HR or something where you can target pretty much any business. Because then you can decide, well, where do I put my efforts? Do I start building a LinkedIn audience? Do I start putting adverts out? Do I go door knocking? But be a bit of an old school method. Do
I definitely did an element of that. It was awful.
We're going to dive into that in one
was
sec.
God.
The other one is obviously networking, going out to business groups and speaking about who you are, what you do, finding mutual connections. And actually, networking was the single biggest thing for me that took my business from a 1-person business to now a 4-person business in the 5 years. So it's worked. It takes time. You have to build it carefully. Do what you say you're going to do and put effort in. But ultimately, every business will have that kind of decision to make when they first start of what's my product, how am I going to tell people about it, and how much am I going to charge for my services, and what's the brand going to be. But all these kind of things, some people have a more clear idea than others, but if you're not sure, just start asking around, because you might find that there's more support than you think or initially thought out there. Go on, tell us about what was your okay, so you had Middlebrook Productions or Middlebrook Media back then.
This would have been before that. This was a terrible brand, which was I think I went with Josh Middlebrook, videographer and editor.
Wow,
Really
mouthful.
Just as it is 200 character limit.
There's no question about who you are and what you do, is there? I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. I still have the business card somewhere.
Please
Please
find it for next week.
So, yeah, I was just trying different, like you say, like anything. I'm like, oh, what could I do here? What could I do there? And this was as drones it just started to become a thing. So I was like, oh, I could, you know how you like years and years ago, and I think they still do it now. You'd have someone would come around to your house, and they'd come around with a framed picture of your house that they took from a plane.
Yeah.
And then they sell it to you on the doorstep, and then you haggle with them, and they just try and get this thing sold because they printed it out. So it was more or less along the lines of that. I was thinking, well, but instead of going out and selling it, I could just be like, if you want it, I can just pop the drone up now. We'll take a photo of the house. I'll get it printed out.
That's a nicer way of doing it, isn't it? Because you're not going, I've already done it. And then you feel bad for going, well, I don't ask for you to do that. You've spent time and money doing that. You've had to have it printed, you've had to have it framed. And
There's also the legal.
yeah. Oh yeah, no, that
'Cause
is a thing.
obviously with drones, it changes all the time. But the thing that has stayed the same is you always need like your landowner's permission. So I could just go like chucking it up on the street side, just being like, "Oh yeah, it's fine. Yeah, we'll
But
just."
if it was flying over the street and not on their property, and you took a picture of their house, is that legal?
Mm, not really over the street. You
Yeah.
get
Okay.
yeah. There are more certifications you can do and certain things you can achieve, but generally flying over streets is a bit of a
Bit of a no go.
like yeah. Generally, you just don't do that.
So how? So okay. So how did you then? What was your first either breakthrough, or when did it start to evolve for you into becoming successful, or starting to get some video work, presumably?
I think I had a really handy bit of luck where so it just so happens that my mum would go riding with a lady and her partner owns a huge business.
Yeah.
um which gave me a bit of an in, and we literally did like this little project, and it was all like very trially sort of, oh well, we've got this interesting project, quite unique going on. Did you want to film it and see what it comes out as? And we did it at a really fair price. I actually delivered it on a DVD. So
A
it gives,
DVD.
which gives you with a proper little menu screen.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. There was some crazy animation.
How did you feel when you won that work and then delivered it, and then you sent the invoice and then got paid?
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome because it was quite unique work as well. I was like, wow, that was pretty awesome. But I didn't ever expect to do any more beyond. In my mind at the time, I was like, oh, that was just like a one off. Like, oh, there's not, now I got to look for the next thing. And then it did take a while, but I sort of kept in contact with that company. And then it's probably about 2 years later, the marketing guy suddenly decided I need more content. And so I was talking to him, and suddenly like it was just like endless back-to-back jobs that were happening, to the point where it was at that point where I started thinking about I need somebody to edit all of this because I'm out so much of the time.
Yeah, you're always shooting.
It's never getting done. So yeah, at that point I started using like freelancers, but on like a sort of like a couple of days a week basis. And
Well, suddenly you've got a business. You've suddenly
Yeah.
got invoiceable income. You're delivering work. You're delivering projects. You've now got a new challenge, which will be obviously the next stage of business when you've gone from startup to actually you're starting to. You've got a product and a brand and things are working and you get in work, and now you need to, how do you juggle your time and deliver it? But it reminded me of actually when you were started talking, the harder you work, the luckier you are, funnily enough, which is you got lucky, right?
Yeah.
But how did you get lucky? Because actually, you might have been, somebody spoke about you. Was it your mom's friend, did you say?
Yes. Yeah.
But your mom presumably spoke to them. Oh, Josh is doing some work on
Yeah.
video. So and that's the thing. It starting a business and then starting to have a bit of success does come down to a little bit of luck. Right place, right time. But the more people you tell, the more noise you can make, and the more you can show yourself in a good light, and then, believe it or not, those chances might start appearing and occurring, and everyone gets lucky at some point.
Yeah. I think as long as you continue to do good work and keep like looking for the opportunities, then yeah, eventually it's like a numbers game, isn't it? It's like eventually you'll get something if you keep trying. It's just how frequent those are to depend on whether it's worth continuing, whether it's worth pursuing. But I think we've both found like the more you get out there and the more you do good work, word of mouth kicks in, doesn't it? So
well, that's it. If you could deliver really good work, and as a few people would say, build some raving fans, of what you do, they will start talking about it. And it can kind of start snowballing in that way, especially when you say what you're going to do, deliver a good piece of work, and then you can potentially talk about it. You could even go as far as making case studies about it and so forth. It all helps credibility. And ultimately, that if you do a really good job for somebody, people value people that can do good work in whatever sector it is. So there's a chance that that might lead to something, it might not. But then again, the next project you do, that might lead to something else. So it does have ability to snowball in that way. And I think people that are either looking, or I bet everybody that listens, they've got their own sort of journey in if they started a business, or if they're working in a business, how it came to be. Or if somebody, I'm really interested if there is anybody listening that is thinking about starting a business, because there is definite challenges that you'll face along the way. Probably the biggest one being that how many hats you have to wear early doors. You know, 1 minute you're doing invoicing, the next minute you're on site shooting a lorry, and then the next minute you're trying to rush to get back to edit it, and then you employ people and add to all the complications, and you've got there's a compliance element with VAT once you get VAT registered and so forth. So there's so many things you have to think about, but there are, and the best thing I guess about the UK and probably most countries is that there is support out there. There are things you can outsource when you want, but most people who start a business will either have, I see it as the way they got a couple of camps. You've got people that have got money and can back it and will either be able to pump some in or bankroll themselves. So I was able to bankroll myself for 12 months. I used up a lot of my savings to do it, but at that point it took me 12 months before I could start to earn something of an income. Or you've got people that are really starting it, either something's happened and they're just trying, or they're starting on the side, or they've planned the start and they've saved a bit of money to put into the business to give it a kickstart. So there's a huge variance in people on how much money the company has initially, whether they, you know, what can you invest in getting a logo done. That was one of the things, actually, getting a logo done. My logo was awful, and it immediately represents the business, doesn't it? So that was probably the best single investment.
You know what, I don't think your initial logo was as bad as some of the ones I've seen. There are some trashy logos out there.
10 points to anyone that can go find both my logo and Josh's original business card.
Oh God. Yeah, mine was worse than yours.
There's plenty to talk about on startups, and I think we've covered a good sort of range there. I mean, there are some technical tips. Obviously, once you've decided on a name, grab a domain.
Yeah.
Shorter the better, obviously. The domain is like, and obviously get an email platform. I can obviously I work more on the technical side of a business startup, but if you are considering it, for me it's been really, really rewarding. How do you feel about where the startup journey and where it's at now?
It's been, for me, it's been, I guess, looking at the business now and what we're trying to do and have been trying to do in the past like 3 years, I feel like, what have I been doing for 10 years? Because I think for a long time, and it was because it was such a slow build, I wasn't thinking like strategically at all. It was just like, oh, I just get the next job.
Reactive.
I just get the next job. Yeah, it was completely reactive to what came in. And then when there was no more jobs, it was like, oh, I better go look for more jobs. So it was a really basic strategy of like, do the work when it's there, and if there's no work, go find more work.
Yeah.
Which maybe is a good start point, but ultimately at some point, especially when you've got employees, you're like, I need to start sorting out future pipelines.
I think that's a great summary of starting a business. So let's jump into the next section. Right then, in this section of the podcast, we will normally be taking some questions from our viewers and listeners. However, this is episode 1, and we don't have any viewers or listeners yet.
We have no listeners.
So instead, we're going to talk about the plan and schedule for the podcast and how to get in touch. Firstly, we'd love to hear your questions, so please get in touch with us so we can actually have some content for this section next week. We do have an email address. It is up there, but I'll read it out for our audio listeners as well. It is podcast@synced-up.co.uk. So podcast@synced-up.co.uk. I used hyphen and dash just in case people are unsure. Our schedule is going to be weekly uploads, aiming for a Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. release, with all things going to plan. So if it's Wednesday morning, or this video is released on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., we have achieved. And where, obviously, if you're looking for some midweek distraction and maybe some knowledge, but let's be honest, mostly a bit of distraction, that would then look out on Wednesday mornings. Now, one extra little thing, Josh's employee, Jack, the superhero editor, I asked him to give us some questions. We haven't read these. God. And I think this is going to be a theme of the podcast, actually, that we're not going to read the questions in advance. We're going to get somebody else to choose them, because I have no idea what he's written.
It could be. I mean, it could really range from like we could be
I'm
on the
not going to guess.
professional end. We could be on the we
You
can't
read
read
the
this
first
out
one. You
end.
read the first one. I haven't
All
read
right.
it yet.
I like how this is folded up like a little award.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest challenge you faced since starting your business, and how did you overcome it?
Sounds like an interview question.
It is an interview code.
This
This is big.
That's a strong question. Well done, Jack. Do you want to go? Do you want me to go?
You go. You go. Do you want me to read it out again?
No.
Okay.
I got it. Um, wow, there's been a few. I think one of the hardest things to get right, especially when you're starting to bring other people into the business, is to maintain some form of uh, quality control and making sure that your delivery doesn't drop if you then let go. So for example, if I was delivering support, I knew I would do it to a certain way, and then suddenly since I'm trusting somebody else to deliver that, it's I tried my best to make sure I trained, because I brought it was Aaron that I brought in originally as an apprentice, and obviously as an apprentice you've got to do outside of work and then you've got to do on job work. So I tried my best to get him as up to speed as I could, as quick as I could. Unfortunately, Aaron's an absolute superstar, but I think the biggest challenges for me have been bringing people into the team and then almost not fully letting go, but having check-ins and an ability to maintain a good standard, make sure service doesn't drop, making sure that Aaron's sort of supported enough to deliver what he needs to do for our customers and that sort of thing. So I think obviously we've had Jamie, who's just completed his apprenticeship as well now. So I think the biggest challenges have always been around bringing people into the business and working with them to help them achieve their best and to get to a level of confidence where they can deal with most situations. So that would be me.
I think. Oh, there's a couple that sit with me, but I think probably the biggest challenge has been picking the right people for the job. So I said I had a lot of freelancers work with me, and they were all great in different ways. But then just for whatever reason, whether it was like their lifestyles, they wanted to move somewhere else, things didn't quite work out. But then when I was finally I had this issue where, you'd keep training people up, and video editing is there's a lot of training that goes into that. Like in a year of like working with somebody, they're still learning. So it's not as easy as like you hope that they've got some level of skill.
It's quite a high skilled job.
Yeah.
Isn't it really?
Yeah, and it to some extent it's sort of like you've either got the eye for it or you haven't. Like there's some things you can train, but I think ultimately
editing is quite a technical job, but you need a marketing kind of, and you need to look at it through an eye of what looks good and what so it's kind of that visual meets technical kind of role, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So overcoming that was I sort of been through like four or five sort of freelancers at the time, and the last person I had was an apprentice, and that worked out quite well, especially at the time where apprenticeships weren't very much on the wage. So in terms of like cost to the business, it was quite a good one. But then so she didn't enjoy the course that she was on, so ultimately she left because of that.
Yeah.
So like nothing wrong with anything there, like in terms of technicals, but it was all just like people if you couldn't give them the full-time work, eventually they're going to move on.
Yeah. And then you're putting a lot of time to something that ultimately is going to move on.
Yeah, exactly. So the final sort of thing, I was like, right, I need to do this. I need to just figure out how to do this properly. So I'd never done it before. I just put out an Indeed ad, and it's amazing because some industries seem to really struggle with Indeed ads. I had to close the ad within 24 hours because I had so many applicants.
But did Jack come from Indeed?
Yeah.
No way.
So I think we did it. Well, I say it was just me at the time. I did about 11 interviews, and wow. I more or less did them like back to back on the same day.
Did you know immediately?
Pretty much. Once, I think Jack was the very last person who came in as well, and I'd looked at everyone's work. I'd like been through, and I was like, right, what was everyone capable of. Some people were, they're lesser skilled, so that's why they didn't get through. One guy, oh my God, if you're going for a job and they ask you this question, do not answer this way. So I asked him the classic question of, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And in my head, I'm like, really, this is related around, are you going to hang about?
Yeah.
And the guy said, he's like, well, in 5 years' time, I think I'll be running my own business, and I think I think I'll just be getting like work from other businesses. And I was like, okay, so you're not going to hang about. So
Yeah.
yep,
I'm not
sorry.
about to invest years of time and effort into you to then so you can take it into run your own business.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, so I'm going to train you up, show you how everything works, and then you're going to take that and make your own business. I was like, no, thank you. So yeah, then
That's a great answer though, because
at least he was honest.
Yeah, I know, but I was more the general answer of the challenges around finding the right people, but then having to freelance initially, and then the pains that came with that, because ultimately they would move on and never stick around, being by design probably, and then actually finding the gem that you've got now.
Yeah,
and the way you did it was cool.
Yeah.
Shall I read question 2?
Let's go.
What does it feel like? No, we're not going that.
I knew there'd be something inappropriate in there.
Yeah. This one's better.
I'm gonna read that.
What was the moment / motivation that made you decide to start your own business instead of working for someone else? Okay, I've got an immediate answer because I've talked about this a little bit before. For me, obviously I worked in my dad's business 15 years. I did so many different roles in that business. So I was on the tech support team for a long while. It's where I found my grassroots into the business and where I fell in love with technology and IT. I then worked in telemarketing. I then worked in account management. I then did some work with accounting. I was helping my dad work with his properties. So before starting my own business, I was involved in a lot within that business. So when it came to what to do next, for me, it was, well, I've got almost all these handcrafted skills of being a business owner. And equally, if I went to work for another company, I didn't want to be pigeonholed into a role. Like, no, you're just doing sales, or no, you're just doing account management. Because I had ideas, and I had that little bit of drive to go, well, I've got all these different things that I'm good at in and around running a business, and the different sort of aspects and departments of that. So to me, took a little bit of a nudge from a few people to make me take the plunge, but it was that ultimately that motivated me to go, no, I don't want to be pigeonholed into a different role. Equally, I didn't feel like I'd go into business and be like a director or anything like that, because I don't felt like I'd earned the right. So for me, it was okay. Let's
you like variety in your job?
Yeah, I just had
felt
like I had the skills to do it.
Yeah.
And if it didn't work out, then I could tail between legs and go and find a different job for somebody else. Did
you care like about the flexibility of it or at all, or that wasn't
wasn't the driver for me. It's not like I want to have this business owner kind of lifestyle. At the time, it was more, I just wanted to create my own thing that I could have a little bit of autonomy over.
Yeah. I think quite similar, to be fair. I think like, for me, it was really, it just sort of it almost happened to me. That was how I let it. I let it sort of happen to me, and then before I knew it, I was like, I did actually apply for a few jobs after uni during this time of building client base, and it basically boiled down to I wasn't good enough to be in the tech world. So I was like,
he definitely is funny.
I know, I understand it. I wouldn't say. It's not like it doesn't come to me instantly. Like, I'll figure it out eventually, but unlike
You're the most technical, non-technical person I've ever met, by the way.
Well, okay, well, I'll take that, but I'm not.
I also love how you passively became a business owner. I just let it happen to me.
It just accidentally happened. Sorry, but I don't know. I basically was like, okay, I wasn't enjoying the idea of working in those businesses. And then when I finally got something that was all like a bit more down my skill set of like photography, the salary they were offering me was not far off like I wasn't far off that, just doing my freelance work.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why would I do it for someone else when I'm already building this? And I was like, I can do whatever I want. Like
Yeah.
that's like I'm.
We'll call that the moment of inspiration. Josh had a salary and he thought, yeah, we'll see about that. I can earn that.
Yeah.
And then off he went.
Yeah, that's very much like a personality trait of mine. If somebody says you can't do it, by the way, that's what happened. My mum was like, "You need to get a job. You don't have a real job. That won't work." So there was the trigger, and I was like,
I bet your mom really knew it would work, and you just needed a little spark,
a
little rocket up the bottom.
Yeah, I think she was just concerned that I might spend too much time pursuing something that might not be.
Okay.
But she's always been very supportive, and like now, obviously, she's like, okay, yeah, I see that didn't work in the end.
So there we have it. We don't have an outro necessarily, but I hope you've all enjoyed listening and watching this podcast. This is a first for us. Obviously, it's going to become a weekly thing now. So look forward to, obviously, hopefully this comes out Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock and every subsequent Wednesday. Every week, we're going to do a different theme. We're going to lean on, obviously, this one's more of general business, but we're going to be talking about have podcast themes of something specific to Josh's industry, sometimes my industry, something that's maybe appropriate in the business world, but we hope you've enjoyed, and please give us some content in the Q&A section for next week, because we can't we can't rely on Jack every week.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.